Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, and today my guest is coming in hot from the one and only Flo Rida, but he is a fellow Canadian like myself. Always love having a fellow Canadian on the pod. Today we have Jon Trask, the CEO and founder of Dimitra, who has been working with blockchain since 2017. Prior to founding Dimitra, Jon had an extensive career in building and developing enterprise software solutions to revolutionize supply chain processes and improve immutable traceability. A true expert in the field, he is also founder and CEO of Blockchain Guru and a partner with the Blockchain Training Alliance. Jon's mission is now to increase farming connectivity, which we freaking love, particularly with those disenfranchised across the globe, and to leverage the power of innovative tech to bridge farming and technology. This is the first episode we've ever had on blockchain and farming tech, and I can't wait to get into it. Jon, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me here today, man.
Super pumped to have you on. I think a good place to start before we got on here, you and I were just shooting the shit a little about where you grew up. You grew up in Nova Scotia, and unless you live in Northeast USA, give or take around Maine, Boston, or unless you're Canadian, not a lot of people know about Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, I got a lot of family from Nova Scotia as well. My family grew up in Truro, a very, very small town whose economy is pretty much all farming as well. Not too far away from Dalhousie, one of the best unis. And what a treat that place is. We'll get into that later. But I'd love if you could just tell listeners what it was like growing up in Nova Scotia, maybe a bit of the small town vibes, and how incredible that place is. Because I absolutely love that place. It's a little island of heaven on the East Coast, on the Atlantic coast of Canada.
Yeah, I loved growing up in Nova Scotia. It's the area I grew up in is the southern tip of Nova Scotia, very based on agriculture and fishing. The town I was in was a major fishing village, and every type of fish you can think of, tuna, lobster, lots of fresh fish every day. And I spent a lot of time growing up on my grandfather's farm. So cattle farming and blueberries and then just about anything we needed. The biggest city in Nova Scotia was 4 hours away from there.
Yeah.
And still quite a small city by world standards. But a great place to grow up. On the farm was a lot of fun for me. And, we would ride and we would take care of the livestock and take care of the vegetables. And it's an interesting environment. So I would recommend anybody to visit Nova Scotia. I would recommend it in the summer, though. It can get quite cold.
Yes. How good is the seafood in Nova Scotia? Every time I go, I'm a big protein guy. I love protein. Every single meal I eat, it's always protein packed. I try to get my 180 grams a day, 1 pound for every body weight, give or take. Ideally more than that. When I'm in Nova Scotia, I am guzzling protein. It's got to be some of the best fish in the whole world there.
Well, fresh does a lot for fish. So, it certainly helps with the flavor, and it's abundant in Nova Scotia. The area I grew up in is virtually completely built around and fishing and farming. So a lot of fresh food every day. My favorite is good tuna. Lots of tuna fishermen where I'm from.
So good.
And get some nice sized tuna steaks. So not tuna from a can, although they make that there too. Yeah. And then, even where I am here in Florida, it's great. I had grouper last night for supper. We were out on a dock walking, my wife and I, and they were the guy on the side of the dock frying up grouper. Caught that day. So
you can't beat it.
Love that food, but you probably get that in Mexico too.
No, the seafood in Mexico is very good. It's a lot cheaper too. Depending on where you go, you got to go to the grittier, more authentic Mexican joints. But shout out El Pirata, one of the places down here. You get literally a full plate full of octopus, garlic octopus with some rice and beans and tomatoes and carrots and, lettuce. It's absolutely incredible. And it's like, $12 American. Like back home in Toronto, I mean, that's literally a $50-$60 plate for the amount of octopus you're getting. So pros of living in Mexico. But let's get into Dimitra here. Why did you and the team decide to start this? Farmers all over the world always, you hear two sides of the story, and you really only hear two. You hear about the small farmers who don't have the tech, don't have the resources, and barely do what they need to keep their family fed, to keep food on the table, to keep everything afloat. And then you hear about these multinational conglomerate farmers, which I honestly wouldn't even call it. They're still farmers, yes, at the end of the day. But these are massive, massive organizations that are pumping out just a stupendous amount of food and other things for us to eat and consume. Why did you and the team decide to start Dimitra?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons that factored into it. First, I grew up on a farm, spent a lot of time on my grandfather's farm. I left in my teens and went on and got into tech business and supply chain business and worked in that for a number of years. A lot of my background in tech and in supply chain was with food companies. They make a very large percentage of the world's supply chain. Trillions of dollars of food are transacted around the world. And so I ended up working for a lot of super national, multinational corporations, moving food, and small organic startups. So a wide variety of exposure there. I did a project probably six years ago now, where I was asked to build an identity system to manage businesses and manage farmers in Africa and put that on a blockchain. So we did that Quorum project. And shortly after doing that, I ended up going to DRC, got to go and visit at a conference and see some of the countryside there. Some of the people that we were working with were heavily involved in agriculture and started really seeing some of the disparity between agriculture in Africa and agriculture in Canada per se, and saw that there was a real need and things that we considered easily available and basic on farms in Canada, farmers were not using in Africa. Part of it was availability, part of it was price, part of it was language and technological accessibility. And we felt maybe we could do something about that. So using our network, we started looking for other opportunities to expand upon the identity software that we built. And we started building out what became the foundation of Dimitra. And the foundation of Dimitra was really, how do we change the lives for smallholder farmers? And smallholder farmers in the food industry is a very large percentage of the world's population, just under 10% of the world's population. They're very underserved from a tech perspective, but they are not financially rich. As you mentioned, a lot of them are really just focused on feeding their family and selling food into the community. And what I knew working for some of the multinationals is that we could start bridging some of those gaps and take, I'll give you an example on a project we're doing in Kenya right now. Take some of those small farmers and be able to move their product out of country and get them significantly more money for their product. But to do that, they need traceability. They need to meet all the regulatory standards. They need satellite reports in order to tell if they're deforesting their farm or not. And they do all the right things, but if you can get them that, we can take an avocado that maybe they get 30 cents a kilo for and get them $1.50 a kilo. And so that makes a significant difference in their life. So it's a work of joy for us, finding ways to help farmers. And we do that through working with cooperatives and governments in many of these countries. And I wake up with a smile on my face every day. I wake up happy to help and serve the community. and work with all these great people around the world.
I love that. You got to walk us through Dimitra as a whole and the solutions that you guys are providing. And I'd love if you could bring up some use cases as well. I'd love to get into the Avocado quality meters as well. I know you just sort of touched on that, but I love if you can go into the full story of that. Give me the whole sort of TLDR, too long didn't read, the whole secret sauce on what exactly you guys are doing and some of the success stories of how you've helped and continue to help underprivileged farmers across the globe.
Yeah. So, right off the bat, our Dimitra starts with a mobile application. Farmers in the world, particularly in developing countries, have access to phones, but don't typically have laptops or PCs. So we have an Android app, and in the Android app, we deliver a number of components and applications. I think we have 5 or 6 applications now. So we have 2 of them focused on livestock. One of them is focused on what does a farmer need to do to manage their cattle and have traceability and manage the health of their cattle and the feed for their cattle and do that well. We have a government application that works on genetics. So how do you manage the genetics of the greater herd within a country?
That's so cool.
And so we do genetic analysis and provide feedback on how, a farm or a breeder can mate a certain bull with a certain heifer and produce better results. So in the end, just like hockey players, if your dad was a big hockey player and your mom was athletic, potentially some of those genes pass on to you, and you can make decisions from a breeding perspective. There are health issues that exist in cattle, and so we can identify animals that pass those health issues on and take them out of the breeding program. We can identify, the large bull that has a very large section that produces some of the best cuts, your prime ribs and things like that. And some of those traits actually pass on genetically. You can identify cattle who produce more milk than others or give birth easier. And making decisions, we can statistically and with our AI make recommendations that will increase the productivity of the herd from a health perspective and from a productivity perspective. So we have those 2 applications, and then we have connected farmer, and offshoots of that have been connected coffee and connected cacao. And essentially what those start with is a farmer gets in the app, they draw a little geofence around where their farm is, and we start right away with satellite imagery. We take a picture with many satellites and apply analysis to that. We have over 20 reports that we can generate that help us assess the quality of the land, the quality of the crop, what crops they're growing, how much moisture there is, certain deficiencies that might exist from a growth perspective. And we give that suite of reports to the farmer. And we point out areas on their land that are good and are bad that they might be able to do something about if they increase the amount of fertilizer they're using, if they manage their water differently, if they install irrigation to certain areas that are lacking. And some of that is known. Farmers know their land quite well. And some of that is just complete rocket science to them. So, you got to spend some time teaching them how to use that information in order to increase the productivity of their land. Once they grow the crop, then we start to track and trace. So I'll give you an example. Solok Rajo in Indonesia is one of our cooperatives. 3,300 farmers on the side of the mountain in Sumatra, all with coffee farms. And so we start with the satellite report, and then we do some soil analysis. We know by the soil analysis that their soil is not pH rich. And if we can increase the pH by using calcium carbonate, we can increase their output. In some cases, we can triple or quadruple their output for a small investment. So then there's ways we use to raise funds to help them fund that. Again, a lot of these farmers only make a few $1,000s a year.
Yeah.
So when you talk about a $500 investment, it's quite big for them.
Yeah.
So within the Connected Farmer Suite, we actually sell NFTs, and we do that cooperative by cooperative and government by government. And those NFTs go to fund farming projects. And the NFT owners get to have a percentage ownership in that farm's product.
It's so cool.
So we're working on one in Kenya last year, and so we did all of our POC. We set everything up. We started planting trees. For $50, an individual could buy a tree, own 20% of the output of that tree from a farmer. We got all the stuff they needed, fertilizer and crew and windbreak and everything they needed for that avocado tree to be successful. Went out on these farms and planted those trees with farmers. The farmers made agreements to share the revenue as those trees start producing. So real world assets at a very micro level.
Yep.
And essentially we're going through the regulatory process now in Kenya to be approved to do this on a very large scale. The goal is to do 1 million trees. And avocados was the first crop. So the 1,000 tree trial went really well. The 1,000 trees were sold almost instantly. And now, so we're continuing to plant trees. And when the regulatory comes through, we will expand wholeheartedly in East Africa. We're doing the same thing now in Roraima, Brazil, which is one of the states of Brazil. It's in the north. It's in the Amazon region. And they want to grow more cacao, which produces chocolate. They want to grow more acai and more fruit. And so the state government with Abrafrutas, which is the Brazilian National Fruit Association, they manage 75% of the exports. And Sabrai, which is a small business organization in Brazil, with Dimitra, we've made a partnership, signed a contract, and we're going out and we're doing that. We're going to be fundraising initially to plant cacao trees in Roraima. We're going to take this all over Brazil, and it'll be the same scenario. How do you get the world to invest in Brazilian crops? And so this is really focused not on the big ranchers. It's focused on small farmers, somebody who has an acre, 4 or 5 acres, and they want to grow their farm. You know, in Kenya, you can put 100 avocado trees on an acre. You can take a farmer who's making $4,000 or $5,000 a year to making $50,000 a year in 5 years. And so it changes their world. It eliminates, the hunger problem. They have money to buy food. They have some of their own avocados as well, all the avocado toast they want. It's interesting with farmers, they instantly go out and help their community. They're very cooperative based.
Yeah.
So, they may grow seedlings to help the farm down the road.
Right.
So everybody prospers from that perspective. The crypto investors make a good return. It's not a short-term return. Farming is not a short-term gain.
Yeah.
It is a long-term business looking for long-term investors. So you got to find the right crypto investors who want to have something in their portfolio that is long-term with long-term returns. And then, we'll be expanding this around the world in the coming years. We're working now in over 20 countries. We have sales teams and projects in over 70 countries, but we have actual producing projects right now in over 20 countries and probably about 40 projects. So it's pretty exciting going through that. I know my answer was very long-winded.
No, I love that. That's incredible. I love how you guys are actually helping, the average Joe and Josephine. I can't even tell you how much I love that. I'd love if you could talk a bit about how you guys are using advanced tech like IoT to allow farmers to measure the quality of their produce, more specifically the avocados. The one thing that really interested me was the IoT avocado quality meters. Again, no farming background from this city boy. I'd be toast on a farm. I mean, I'm sure if I had, my grandpa or someone like you to walk me through it, I could do it. But if you were to just throw me on a farm and say, all right, Matt, figure your shit out, I wouldn't be able to produce anything. I've grown a couple fruits and veggies in my day on the back porch or in the backyard, but nothing spectacular. And this is just something that really intrigues me. I'd love if you could talk about, again, how you guys are using really advanced tech like IoT and how the IoT avocado quality meters allow farmers to really measure the quality of their avos, increase output, and give a better product to their consumers.
Yeah, so the first thing we do is we use a 7-1 meter that measures some of the nutrients in the ground. And that feeds data back to our system. And that can help make recommendations on how to fertilize the ground in order to maximize their output and keep their plants or their trees healthy. When the avocados are grown, avocado quality is critical to manage when you pick and that you pick at the right time. Imagine a lot of these avocados are being loaded on a boat and they're being sent, to Europe or North America from other areas of the world. I think everybody who eats avocados has gone to the store and gotten an avocado, and some of them are rock hard.
Yeah, you got to wait a couple days.
And then you got to wait for them to ripen. But some of them are rock hard and never stop being rock hard.
Yeah.
And that's one indicator that it was picked at the wrong time. So there's a certain quality standard within avocados, and we use a number of meters that look at the ripeness and hardness and dry matter content within an avocado to determine that it's being picked at the right time and it's of the right quality. One of the advantages of using those meters is that we have the data to help give recommendations to the farmer, but secondarily, now we have the data to give to the consumer, the grocery chain that's buying it or the importer that's buying it. And so they now know if they're buying from this small farmer in Kenya, that they're getting a good quality product. And you can test every load. So they can film with a camera that they're out there testing the load that's going to wherever, the Middle East or the EU, and showing those results. And then we can give a comprehensive report to that group to say, yeah, you ordered 50,000 kilos of avocados and we tested, 1% of those or half a percent of those. And here's the range of results we got. And that should be indicative of the range of results that you get in your load. And that really helps us work with the farmer and get them that additional revenue, get them that $1.50 a kilo versus the 30 cents a kilo they might be able to get locally.
So cool. So freaking cool here, John. We got to take a quick break and we got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show. And when we get back, we are going to keep buzzing on everything Dimitra, blockchain, and Web3 tech and how they help the farming and agricultural industry. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XBT, longtime friends of cryptonews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at Prime XBT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XBT is also running an exclusive promotion for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50. That is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. I want to keep buzzing on, obviously, Dimitra as a whole, but one of the things I'd love to get into is how you guys utilize blockchain as a whole. I know there's tons of sort of Web 2. I mean, the agricultural industry is one of the largest in the world. Just hearing you talk about some of these stories and me going to, the supermarket, or, sometimes I go to some of the smaller mom and pop food shops here in Mexico and grab some of the avocados. And again, in Mexico, the avocados are 10 out of 10. You get Haas avocados, they're ripe 24/7. You don't even have to wait. It's incredible. But these are the small things I take for granted, where I never think about all the work that the farmers and the supply chain and the truckers and everyone else put into this. I just walk my lazy ass over to the supermarket, throw a couple pesos down, and boom, I get my literal perfect avocado to come back and then destroy, on my kitchen table. I'd love if you could talk about blockchain and Web3 tech and how you guys utilize those two pieces of tech in particular. You talked a lot about the IoT avocado quality meters, how you guys are integrating pieces of tech to make sure that the soil is rich in pH, to make sure the supply chain to help increase yield. But what about the blockchain in particular? Obviously, some type of, of ledger, I assume, is used. It's much easier to trace and track. But I'd love for you to give sort of specific examples of how blockchain tech is used in Dimitra's tech stack.
So there's a number of ways. I mentioned the NFT, the buy a tree NFT. So,
cool.
We use that. And so, very simply issue NFTs when anybody buys a tree or a large number of trees. There's a relationship back to the satellite data so that NFT holder can go back and look at how their tree or group of trees are doing. We feed that with our token, the Dimitra token. So all NFTs are purchased in DMTR, or our treasury does a conversion to purchase them in DMTR if somebody wants to buy a tree for their girlfriend with their credit card. And then there's a number of other ways that we use the system. So from a blockchain perspective, traceability is an area in the world with a lot of fraud. And there's a lot of reason fraud exists. There's big numbers, big dollars are moving. And knowing the provenance of your fruit or vegetable is very important. So when you pack up a load of, and we'll stick with the avocado theme, pack up a load of avocados, you want to know where those are from. And consumers want to know where their produce is from, and that if it's meeting certain requirements, certain environmental standards, sustainability standards, deforestation standards, and regulations. So one way we use blockchain is we have a deforestation application. Our users, our cooperatives and our governments use this, as well as large corporations in coffee and cocoa and other areas of the world, to evaluate a farm, the source farm, and to see if that farm has deforested. There's some new laws coming out in the EU. They're already out. Farms need to comply by the end of this year on 7 major commodities. Coffee and cocoa are 2 of them that we do a lot of business in. And you will no longer be allowed to ship coffee or cocoa from a small farm anywhere in the world into the EU if the farm has been deforested. So when we do that, we produce a deforestation certificate. The EU had set our rules saying no deforestation after the end of 2020. So we take a historical satellite report of that farm at that time. We take a current satellite report of the farm, and we've trained our AI to evaluate the differences and follow the rules of deforestation, not just the EU rules, but the local country rules, and produce a report that says the farm is free of deforestation or the farm has deforested during that period. If it's free of deforestation, we take that data, so the source data from the satellite network, the analysis data, and the location data, and we write that to the blockchain. So we're doing that right now with Polygon. And so we create a public record, but an immutable record that farm at a certain date and time was deforestation free. That farmer can share that record with whoever they're selling their avocados to. They can give that to the customs authority in the EU to show that they're deforestation free. They buy their credits in DMTR for that. And on some of the initial projects right now, some of those credits come in, we have to pay the satellite fees, we have to pay the filing fees, but then we file all of that data, we write it to Polygon, and it's all managed with DMTR. We've done this with other blockchains as well. Right now, we're doing an integration with Open Food Chain, another blockchain food company, and they want their data on Komodo. So we're doing a Komodo integration right now. So, Bitcoin-based system in order to provide some of the similar information around that. This project is a cocoa project. It's running in Peru and Colombia. And so we take our data, we process it in our application, it goes to the cloud, we write it to Polygon, we write it to Komodo. We also write the sales information. So part of this is a EU project in order to increase the value paid to farmers. So we monitor when the trade between the farmer and whoever is buying the product, the price, and then we compare that to make sure that they're earning more for that deforestation-free product that meets that and certain other regulations. That way more money gets back to the farmer as opposed to being preserved later on in the supply chain. The supply chain gains comfort that they have proof that that cocoa, which is going into your hot chocolate or your chocolate bar, is deforestation-free and lacking child labor and things like that.
So cool. Jon, what an episode, man. This you sort of lit a fire under my ass here. You guys are really, really doing incredible things for people who need it. And I really love that. This was great. Thank you so much for coming on. Can't wait to have you on for round 2. Super happy and proud for what you and the team are doing. And can't wait to see what you guys keep cooking up. Before you let us go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and Dimitra online and on socials?
Yeah, so I don't know if we can post something that goes on here. I can give you a list of those, but Dimitra.io is our website. And in the top right corner of Dimitra.io, there is an info bar that shows all of our other socials. So we've got many of them.
Well, folks, we will include all the links in the show notes as always. And on Twitter, you can find them at Dimitra Tech. That is Dimitra, Dimitra Tech, TECH, all one word. Great Twitter as well. Jon, thank you so much for coming on. Truly a treat of an episode, and can't wait to have you on for round 2.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on here today. Thank you.
What a blast. Folks, what an episode with Jon Trask, CEO and founder of Dimitra. We don't often get episodes where we have founders literally moving the needle for people who really, really need them. And this was one of them. Huge shout out to Jon and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys so much. Eustace, you are the man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Bye for now, and we'll talk soon.